Just in case you haven't watched part 1 yet, I will link it in the description below. Now we're entering movement 3, grace and being friends with God. Nothing says friends with God like God is a stalker.
Detrás de ti voy, yo que siempre espero que vengan a mí.
Here, Rosalía is singing from the point of view of God, who is stalking her baby, her lover. The irony is that the second quote on the physical album is by Rabia Aladawiyya, the saint who inspired La Yugular, who said, "No woman has ever claimed to be God." And here we have a woman singing as God.
God is a stalker. No, but it's true.
That's an impossible exercise, okay?
Yeah.
The first person trying a first person of God in a song, it's an impossible. That's why it's already from a sense of humor point of view, desde el sentido del humor.
As the music builds in this song, God gets progressively more human and more relatable. The beginning sounds playful, but very soft, almost like she's timid. I will follow you. You improvise if you go slow or fast.
Yo te sigo, te improvisa, si va lento o si vas deprisa.
She's present, but she's in your shadows, kind of in the background. My breath is the wind that brushes your hair, and the way she sings pelo.
Mi aliento es el viento que te roza el pelo.
It's not creepy, but it's all because of love. It's an act of love. In the chorus, she gains confidence, which you can hear in the music building. God says, "I'm used to waiting for other people to come to me, but I've chosen to follow you."
Tras de ti voy, yo que siempre espero que vengan a mí.
And of course, the music has this sort of detective spy quality. Then her tone gets even more playful and more confident.
El mundo me quiere de su lado, tengo el buzón explotado.
Everyone wants me by my side. My inbox is overflowing. I live up in the clouds because God lives in the heavens, but I also wonder if she's making fun of herself, like her head is in the clouds. In the sniper version of this song, she takes it to a whole new level. She calls herself a sniper, a huntress, a sharpshooter, and she becomes even more actively stalking and daring. This line is wild. "I'm a meadow made of morphine. Whenever you want, you can walk through me."
Hay un prado hecho de morfina, cuando quieras me caminarás. Detrás de ti voy.
And there's yet another key change. Every key change invites more openness and honesty from God. And we have this really important line. All this omnipresence is exhausting me. This may also be inspired by Simone Weil, who wrote about how the cross is that intersection of God working to meet humans and humans working to meet God. In Magnolias, we get the line about God descending, humans ascending. And I know she's joking about the exhaustion, but this does kind of help you meet in the middle with a concept of a God. There's something much more sincere and relatable about a God who says, "My job can be exhausting," than a God who says, "I feel no pain, I never get tired, I'm everywhere, I'm always, and it has no impact on me." On tour, she walks through the crowd while she's singing this song to really capture that sort of God is among us, if not perhaps one of us feeling. And there's so many interesting questions raised, like what if God, or the idea of God, the light, is closer, more accessible than we think? An idea that La Yugular explores a bit more. Also, what if God is stalking you or calling to you in ways? In the same way that we sort of search for truth in Mundo Nuevo, is the truth perhaps searching for us, moving towards us in some way? Also, when we stalk people on the internet, is that our desire, our attempt to be more godlike, to be all-knowing, to be ever-present? How does God, having a personality, being a stalker, like how does that impact how you feel about the idea of God? Again, regardless of whether you're religious or spiritual. It's really interesting. Let me know which of the two versions of this song you prefer, because I really appreciate the new lyrics in this longer version, especially this lyric. But I am partial to the digital version because of how it transitions into La Yugular.
Perseguirnos sin piedad.
You might think you're moving from a powerful song into a gentle song, but actually, the divine power is being carried forward. The connection between these two songs, I think, foreshadows one of the most powerful moments on the album, which of course is on La Yugular.
Yo que pone el mundo y el mundo cabe en mí.
Not to be dramatic, it's a great way to start, but I do think of my life as divided into two parts. Like, I think of my life as a before and after hearing La Yugular, the jugular vein, for the first time. This song was inspired by Rabia al-Adawiya from what is now Iraq, which is why the chorus is sung in Arabic. The song is also sung in Spanish with, of course, a little English clip by Patti Smith at the end. Rabia al-Adawiya quoted on the album, she said, "No woman has ever claimed to be God." Apparently, this was in response to some men who were challenging her religious teachings and saying, well, this is new, there aren't a lot of women who are prophets. And her response was, well, no woman has ever claimed to be God. Can't say the same about men, suggesting that maybe women hold a certain kind of humility that is actually a sign of spiritual strength. I mean, this quote is very ego sum mi, lego sum lux mundi. And the fact that Rosalía uses humor when she plays God on this album also reflects that humility. She's sort of echoing the sentiment of this saint. I do think of this song as being sung from the point of view of Rabia al-Adawiya. So Rosalía drew on a few Islamic concepts for this song.
Something so beautiful when I've been reading more about el Islam, la cultura islámica, and it's so interesting how this conception of everything connected, everything is connected with everything, right? And I was trying to write and express that the best I could in the outro of it. When I say lo grande y lo pequeño, right?
And then that goes to
El
big.
micro, exacto, el micro y el macro. And the juxtaposition of it, right? And the stretch of it. And that force, como that tension between both, it felt exciting to me how they, between lines, I could be pushing that, stretching that. And I think it might be maybe my favorite part. Sometimes that feeling of the lo pequeño y lo grande siendo lo mismo, at least it's something I experienced and I wanted it to put in a song.
And of course, we will get to the outro, but she actually plays with the concepts of big and small throughout the song. She starts off with these questions. How many fights do the lines of my hands remember? The symbolism of a tiny scar on your hand that might contain hundreds or thousands of words worth of storytelling, emotion, pain. How many stories fit in 21 grams? Apparently, there was a scientist who would weigh human bodies before and after death and concluded that because the difference was 21 grams, that must be the weight of the human soul. So these things that seem so small, a human soul, a scar on a hand, contain so much meaning. This line references a quote from the Quran: "You who are far away and at the same time closer than my own jugular vein." Her voice and the music here feel like they're coming progressively closer to you and wrapping around you.
Tú que tan lejos y a la vez más cerca que mi propia vena yugular me nagla.
In Arabic, she sings, "For you, I would destroy the sky. I would tear down hell. No promises, no threats." This captures the essence of this saint, because Rabia's approach to loving God was next level. She rejected this idea that you should love God because you're afraid of being punished or because you're expecting a reward in the form of heaven. She's often shown holding both water and fire, water to put out the flames of hell and fire to burn down the rewards of paradise. Sometimes in religion, the ideas of punishment and reward are used to control people. It can even make faith feel transactional at times, to say, well, I did this, therefore I'm going to heaven. But look at the power that comes from rising above those rules and restrictions. And the way she sings it just embodies love for the sake of love.
Mira, yo no tengo tiempo.
It's hard not to just play the whole song. On tour, this whole time she's been sitting on the stairs with the snow falling. There's a lyric about snow, which we'll get to in a moment. Right on this line, she says, look, I don't have time to hate Lucifer. I'm too busy loving you, Undibel, God. Undibel is a Spanish Romani word for God, perhaps referencing Rosalia's flamenco background again. So she stands up.
Mira, yo no tengo tiempo.
You can feel her determination, even the lyrics starting off with mira, like, look, mira, yo no tengo tiempo. It's very conversational, very emphatic. And this is actually something that Rabia said when someone asked her if she hated Satan because she loved God so much. And she replied, where is the space in my heart to hate Satan if it's so full of my love for the Lord? It's interesting to think if all the energy that goes towards hating things in the world was sort of redirected to loving.
I think it's important to, while collecting stories about the other, I feel like then making songs inspired in that, like I'm celebrating and giving love to the other, to the otherness, trying to understand the otherness better. It feels like nowadays it's like everything is so divided. And no, I want the opposite. I need the opposite.
I think these metaphors are here to really describe her love for God. There's an eagerness for more. My heart is always in a race. I'm cutting flowers before it's even spring. She describes her horses as being tied up. I see that as self-restraint, kind of like the absence, the abstinence that satiates from divinize, which, like, yeah, maybe if you refrain from hatred, that leaves more room for love. Blood and luck have dragged me here. And there's this sort of inevitability that she would have and find this connection with God. She says, your love is an avalanche. It falls by its own weight, just by existing. And that is the snow that I want to sink into. Hence the snow falling from above on tour. This is the ultimate self-sacrifice. So you can feel the love. In Divinize, we had the moonbeams nourishing her with cold. Here we have snow portrayed as this warm hug. Then we get the chorus again, followed by a sort of calm before the storm. Anyone else get chills every time you hear Yo que pone el mundo? Like, boom, boom, Yo que pone el mundo. Chills every time. And then we get this freaking outro. One of you called it a beautiful crescendo of contradictions, which I think is the perfect way to describe it. And what she does with this on tour, we get this camera angle where we can see her pushing against the glass, trying to break through. You can see her breath on the glass. And I don't know if you've ever heard people say when they love someone so much and when they're hugging them, it just feels like no matter how close you get, it's never close enough. Like you just want to get closer and closer and closer. And that's the feeling she captures with these visuals. I think I'm just gonna play it. It's actually incredible how she's able to capture this feeling of feeling so tiny and so huge all at the same time, to feel this soaring love within you and to be just surrendering to it and wanting more. And I wonder if it speaks to us because on some level, we know that big things are contained within small things. If you have ever lost a person or a pet, you know that a tiny little object that is a reminder can hold so much meaning, so many memories. I also think we know on some level that feelings that we search for externally, God, the truth, happiness, what if those things are in a lipstick? You know what I mean? Like, what if those things are really, really close to us, more accessible than we think? Let me know what you think. It's interesting on the topic of connection, things being connected. Right after this song on tour, they do the art cam where they light up the audience. They show an audience member in one frame and then a famous painting on the other frame, people who kind of look similar. And these are people who are immortalized in art, and it sort of highlights the present and the eternal. Like, we are so much more connected than we think.
Everything is connected with everything, right?
And I think Patti Smith on this song also highlights that. Rosalia is connecting three different women from very different time periods, contexts. She highlights this insatiable need for more, for truth, for light, an endless journey towards transcendence while breaking boundaries and preconceptions, just like Rabia Ladawiya did and like Rosalia's doing. And it's just this connection between these three women. And Rosalia captures this the way she's pounding on the glass. This is not enough. I want to get closer. I want to dive deeper. I want to break on through to the other side. I've seen people say they want a music video for this song. I really do not want a music video. I adore this song. I want the emotions to stay in the music. In the same way they say that horror can be captured best in writing, because the fear of what is not shown is actually greater than what can be shown. I think for this song, the love it's describing is way bigger than anything an image could capture. I think the tour imagery comes closer than I would have expected possible, and I think that is more than enough. Speaking of breaking on through to the other side, the next song is about breaking away. It's about freedom. It's Focu Ranni. Focu Ranni means great fire in Sicilian. We will talk about the fire and light symbolism in that. The song was inspired by Saint Rosalia of Palermo, the capital of Sicily, which is why the ending is sung in Sicilian. But this is another one where I think it's also about Rosalia herself. It's definitely about the saint, but it does feel really personal.
There was so many like crazy coincidences while I was studying and learning about these stories. Santa Rosalia de Palermo.
The coincidences she's talking about are these parallels between her and Santa Rosalia's stories. Besides having the same name, both women called off their engagements. Saint Rosalia, on the night before her wedding, saw the face of God in a mirror, who said to her, "Love me." She then cut off her hair and went to live as a hermit for 12 years, basically dedicating her life to prayer. Some might say that Rosalia ended her engagement and dedicated her life to this divine album for a few years. For me, this is one of the most heart-wrenching songs. Just based on her voice and how she sings this, she just captures the pain and sadness that often go hand in hand with letting go. And she tells that whole story in this intro music. First, we hear pure grief. Then we hear pure freedom. But the two quickly combine. The melody gets scratchy, and then the scratchy grief becomes melodic, and they become one sound to demonstrate that in this story, grief and freedom are one and the same. I love how it captures the messiness and complexity of these feelings. And every time this musical interlude plays on tour, Rosalia and her dancers just run. And I love that it's a messy run. It's not a clear run from point A to point B, because freedom is not a clear path. It captures the frantic chaos, the automatic escape mode that activates of, I don't know where I'm going, I just need to get out of here. And of course she wears her angel wings on this song, which help her fly away. Since I don't have my emotional support Spotify lyrics, bear with me as we try to get creative here. So the song describes a wedding that was supposed to take place, but doesn't, because she chooses herself instead. She says, "I wanted to wear white, but I wore violet." White symbolizing the wedding that never took place, and maybe violet symbolizing the emotional bruising that she's left with, as in, bruise me up, I'll eat all of my pride. The sand that you hold in your hand slips through your fist if you squeeze it. Inspired by a breakup note that Joni Mitchell wrote to her partner. It's a beautiful metaphor, and it's accurate. Like, if you want to hold on to someone who values their independence the way Rosalia does, you need to allow her enough breathing room. There's a flamenco-inspired galloping rhythm in the background, which to me feels like wild horses running free. Right when she says, "I can say that I'm at peace," the music breaks away. Like in Reliquia, right after "No soy una santa, pero estoy blessed," when the music breaks away, it indicates peace. The way she sings on this chorus just pierces my heart. She says, "I won't be your other half." I think this is the part where her voice captures the ultimate pain and sadness that comes with that liberation.
No seré tu mitad, nunca de tu propiedad. Seré mía y de mi libertad.
Here the song title becomes relevant. Focu Ranni is a Sicilian expression meaning big fire, especially used to describe difficult or complicated situations. Rosalia plays with this and uses the metaphor of fire to capture those two feelings again, the loss and the freedom. She says our relationship was built on love, and that makes it harder to lose or to burn down. That's the loss. On the other hand, my internal fire, my LUX, my desire to be my authentic self and to be free, is a fire that you'll never be able to extinguish. So yes, it might be hard to end this relationship, but it's better to do that than to try to restrict my independence. The decision means we have to mourn the relationship that's been burned down. There won't be a wedding, so no one will throw rice. We won't have a drunk celebration. There won't be flowers. And then she has a really interesting line. There won't be anyone to bless a love that in truth they don't know. I think this line captures something that the whole album is doing, which is challenging rigid thinking. This is perhaps one of the flaws of organized religion, that often when you get married, the religious figure that marries you might not actually know anything about your relationship. I don't know if it's criticizing, but certainly it's challenging the rigid thinking. If we think of LUX and light as the search for truth, here she captures the inevitability of truth coming out eventually. I carved your name into my ribs. I think she has the tattoo.
Voy a tatuarme la piel tu inicial porque la mía.
So many like crazy coincidences.
But my heart never had your initials. You can change the external, but you can't change the internal. When she sings in Sicilian, she is in a way stepping into the shoes of Saint Rosalia, but again, it feels very personal. You, my great fire, my difficult situation. I throw myself into nothingness so as not to lose my freedom. She's choosing the ultimate uncertainty over a relationship that restricts her freedom. Rather than a knight in shining armor on a white horse in the music video, she is on the white horse herself. Not only is she riding bareback, giving more freedom to her and to the horse, but she's doing her own saving. A love without laws is the only one I'd accept. I think another comment on how some humans in some religions can feel really suffocating with their rules and expectations. Sometimes finding your truth, your lux, means breaking away from that, or at least stepping outside of it so you can sort of pick and choose what you want to keep. This is a really good indication of when you are ready for change. When the fear of staying in the situation you're in becomes greater than the fear of uncertainty, that is sometimes the breaking point where you make changes. And yes, it's painful to grieve the loss, but there's freedom that comes with that process. On tour, she actually throws herself into the void. She climbs up these stairs in a sort of heavy, confused way, and then she falls off the ledge into the unknown. The video is this alternate path. She's running towards divinity, freedom, femininity. She finds her lux. Going back to Simone Weil, it's that absence that satiates. You need the right kind of void in your life so that the light has room to get in. It takes courage. This song feels courageous as well as pained and free. Speaking of liberation and letting go,
Sauvignon Blanc a tu lado.
this is one of the simplest songs and one of the most powerful messages. In Sauvignon Blanc, the simplicity is the point. Some people joked that after the Berghain music video, Rosalia's budget ran out, which is why the videos for La Perla and Sauvignon Blanc are so simple, which maybe she did. This song in particular is about how the budget doesn't matter. She says, your love will be my budget. Your love is my currency. Inspired by Santa Teresa of Avila, Spain, she lets go of all material possessions to live a life of simplicity and relationship with God. Saint Teresa believed in detaching ourselves from possessions and status and living a life of really, truly simplicity. And we can hear that in the music, on an album where there's so much rich music. This song is so minimal. It's really just Rosalia's voice, a piano, some strings, tiny bit of clapping at the end. Saint Teresa defined prayer as being friends with God. On tour, Rosalia has 2 glasses of wine, one for her and one for her musician, but I like to think it's for her and God. This song is the celebration. It's the cheers with God when it's just her and God left. As we near the end of the album, she references previous songs to show a movement away from the world and towards the divine. She continues the fire metaphor from Focu Ranni, saying, "My light will come from burning my Rolls Royce."
Mi luz la prenderé con el Rolls Royce que quemaré.
I don't want pearls or caviar anymore, rejecting la perla.
Ya no quiero perlas ni caviar.
I will break my porcelain. We've already seen how porcelain can have even more value when it's broken.
Mi porcelana la dejaré caer.
When she's at the top of the stairs on tour, it symbolizes connection to divinity, just like we saw in La Yugular. But it is funny to watch her singing, "I will give away my piano," while she's sitting on a beautiful piano. She's like, "I'll give it away, but at first I'm going to use it for my performance."
Y regalaré mi piano de pared.
It just made me reflect how impossible living by these principles feels in our modern world.
It's hard because this
Yeah.
word teaches you how to desire a lot,
Yes.
but don't teach you enough how to not desire. I want to learn more how to desire less.
And it's almost destabilizing how beautifully moving this song is, considering how simple it is, which of course is the point of the song. There's beauty in simplicity. I want to know your thoughts on this. Saint Teresa was known for having these bouts of ecstasy. She would have these full body, almost erotic unions with God. And one theory about Sauvignon Blanc is that she's getting drunk on God's love. To me, this song doesn't feel as physical as Divinize, for example. It doesn't feel like a song about getting drunk with God. It feels more like a heartwarming joy to me. It's more of that friendly sort of cheers and glass of wine with God. But let's listen and let me know what you think.
Mi Sauvignon Blanc a tu lado, mi futuro sé bien que será tu compare.
It's not this. One thing I know, I need the warm hug of Sauvignon Blanc before we go into, in my opinion, the saddest song on the album, Jeanne.
La voix d'un ange.
This is Jeanne as in Jeanne d'Arc, Joan of Arc, which is why parts of this song are sung in French. This haunting melody at the start, I imagine Joan of Arc walking up to be burned at the stake. Joan of Arc was a 17-year-old French girl who had divine visions. And although at first she was believed and she was celebrated as a leader, she was ultimately deemed guilty of heresy and burned alive. This song captures the pain of accepting her fate. I think of this first part as Joan of Arc singing to herself, saying, "Surrender yourself. There's no better way to love than to self-annihilate," right?
Que aniquilarse.
You can feel the powerlessness, the resignation in her voice when she says, "And who will I be? It's been decided."
Et qui serais-je? C'était décidé.
Painful contrast when she says the voice of an angel revealed itself, paired with this thundering piano of despair and foreshadowing.
Et révélé. Lloraba.
It was the voice of angels, the divine visions that brought her light and hope, but ultimately it's humans that will persecute her and take that all away. I mean, the way she sings just captures the purity, the innocence of this young woman. It's so beautiful and it's so sad.
La vida es breve, se arrebatada.
I cried at dawn. Life is brief when it's taken abruptly. I think Rosalia captures how you can cry and feel and still accept your fate. Acceptance and grief often do go hand in hand. In order to accept, you have to grieve what's not true, like what you maybe wish was true. And then in order to grieve, you have to accept that there's a loss. I feel like she captures both sort of feelings here. Rosalia switches from singing in French from Joan of Arc's point of view to now Spanish, and the song intensifies. You can hear the flames in the background melody.
Sin nadie a su lado.
The flames are Joan of Arc's fate, but I think they also symbolize Rosalia's anger. Whereas in most of the other songs inspired by saints, Rosalia invites us to step into their shoes, and we do here. But this song might be the first time that Rosalia is observing Joan of Arc and actually sharing her opinion on the situation. She sings, "She trembles with no one by her side, tenderness of sharpened time, crowned and thorned." Crowned because at first her visions were celebrated, but then thorned because she was ultimately punished for them. I imagined Rosalia looking directly at Joan of Arc and singing to her. And I mean, another theory is maybe God is talking here and just capturing the tragic irony of her story. Standing, you will give birth to the light, and the flames will destroy the cross.
Y las llamas destrozarán la cruz.
I mean, the church claims divine power, but ultimately destroys a pure and faithful young woman. By contrast, this young woman is dying, but holds the purest light actually within her. Ego sum nihil, ego sum lux mundi. I may be violently destroyed, I may become nothing in that sense, but the light and the message that I carry within me live on after me. In French, we hear Joan of Arc's despair for one last time. Carry on regardless, spare me, the sword has abandoned me. We can hear despair turning into a calm prayer by how the music builds and then breaks away.
L'épée m'a abandonné, mon père.
As part of being on trial, Joan of Arc was accused of blasphemy for wearing men's clothing. She was participating in the military. Potentially one of the most rigid dualities in society and in many religions, man and woman. She's challenging this black and white thinking. She's rising above it and in prayer saying, I will be neither a man nor a woman. It's my heart that names me, my heart that defines me. She lays down her weapons at the end, but she doesn't give up her soul. And I love how her voice blends into these flames as they're consuming her. That little voice circling at the end is the only part of this song that makes me smile. There's a little bit of hope The flames destroy her physical body, but as she says in Focu Ranni, there are certain fires that you cannot extinguish. So the light of her story, her message, her faith live on. Somehow this song just captures all of these emotions: surrender, despair, anger, purity, there's acceptance, and of course, grief. There's a sharp transition into the next song, maybe because it's also the first song of the fourth and last movement, Novia Robot, the robot girlfriend.
Guapa para Dios, me pongo guapa para Dios.
I love that she wears her wings for this song on tour. Novia Robot is also a song about freedom, liberation. She's rejecting objectification and hypersexualization, especially of women.
I remember I saw like some news of this place that there was like women, like robots that they were shaped as women and pretty dark. And that, I don't know, it didn't sit that, it didn't sit that comfortably in me. For some reason I was like a little bit like, I don't know how I feel about this. And then I kind of like started understanding how I felt about this, and I wrote this song.
She moves back and forth in this song between a very satirical and very serious tone. It's a great example of how humor can be a very powerful tool. This is the first song in the fourth movement, which is the farewell, the return. So we do get some existential themes around values, identity, forgiveness, some of the questions that you might think about when you think about death. She starts off satirical and sarcastic, which you could hear in her voice.
Bienvenidos a Robóticas con K, un mundo de fantasía robótica femenina hecha para el placer del sexo opuesto.
The distorted dystopian music in the background captures how reality can feel dystopian sometimes. She's describing a fictional robot girlfriend company designed to bring pleasure to the opposite sex, regardless of the price. Just like she said, we're gonna burn the Rolls Royce, she says we're gonna burn the manual, burn the rule book of how things should be done.
Dame el manual para lo mismo, para lo mismo. Y este manual para los tuyos, los tuyos, los tuyos.
Make your own manual. I freed myself and I freed you. I love the strength in the production and in this sentiment. And these ideas are connected, by liberating herself from being a robot girlfriend. She's actually liberating the partner from having a robot girlfriend. All parties would benefit from being liberated from that. She sings in Mandarin here, inspired by Sunbuer, a Taoist nun and teacher and poet who, similarly to the saint in Porcelana, burned her own face with oil to avoid harassment that would get in the way of her spiritual journey. So when Rosalía sings, a robot girlfriend is what you want today, I'm sorry, dear, but I am real. She echoes Sunbuer's rejection of being sexualized. So cool that she sings in Mandarin too. Then we're back to the satire. She's speaking as the robot here, saying, I'm wearing a tutu, I have attitude. She reclaims the tutu, by the way, in her LUX interviews and also on tour when she wears the tutu material. She takes back that control. I heard a theory that Roro might be referring to tradwife influencer Roro. She's kind of the Spanish Nara Smith. I don't know. I think this could easily just be like Rosalía Robot, like ro. But either way, she's definitely mocking. This is the first and only time on this album that she steps into a man's point of view. Everything in quotes. She is mocking the guy here for wanting a trofeo, a trophy wife, for treating a woman like a llavero, just a keychain that you carry around for show, and a mujer florero, like objectified, like a vase. It's cool, the little yin reference here, given that Sunbuer was a Taoist nun. It's so fitting on this album to reference yin-yang philosophy. It's a sort of duality which in itself challenges the idea of duality. There's black and there's white, but there's also white in the black, and there's black in the way and they interact. I think yin is associated more with feminine and maybe passive energy, whereas yang is associated more with male, active energy. So this guy is missing his yin. He's potentially missing his passive feminine robot that he wants. What he wants is power, and he doesn't understand that women were already born with power. Then she steps back into her power. She says, I'm gonna get dressed up, I'm gonna look good, guapa, but not for you or for anyone else. I'm doing it for God.
Guapa para Dios, me pongo guapa para Dios. Nunca para ti ni para nadie, solo guapa pa mi Dios.
The music and how she sings it brings out how empowered she feels in saying this. Just like in Focu Ranni and Sauvignon Blanc, she's choosing spirituality over human attention, human values, and the fact she's wearing those wings on the tour is just suggests it's that choice that brings true freedom. I like how the first time she sings it, you can hear the dystopian melody behind her because she's still fighting against the pressure, but then the second time she sings it, the music feels stronger and more liberated.
Guapa para Dios, me pongo guapa para Dios. Nunca para ti ni para nadie, solo guapa pa mi Dios. Guapa para Dios, me pongo guapa para Dios. Nunca para ti ni para nadie, solo guapa pa mi Dios.
Speaking of pressure, she sings in Hebrew, inspired by Miriam, a Jewish prophet who also happens to be Moses' sister, who was a very rebellious leader. She rebelled against oppression in Judaism. She says, I was born to be a rebel, and I rebelled to be born again. If pressure makes diamonds, why aren't we all shining?
Them, how contradictorio it could be, no? That if pressure can make diamonds, does this happen to us as humans? Maybe it does. Maybe there's some pressure applied from above that maybe brings the best of us out.
We all feel pressure in some way, so what if that means we are shining? What if we all have some LUX inside of us and we just have to get pushed in the right way in order to find it? It's interesting. Next, we have the song that I've been skeptical about since the first time I heard it, La Rumba Del Perdón. The Rumba of Forgiveness. The features are Estrella Morente, Silvia Perez Cruz. La Rumba is a type of flamenco, and these are very famous flamenco artists. On paper, this is a song about God forgiving the sins of humans. The verses tell stories of people betraying and hurting each other. Then the chorus says, I forgive everything. But if you watched my reaction, you know that I was just not convinced that this is a song about forgiveness. It doesn't feel like forgiveness in the traditional sense. If you told me that there's a song on this album that's about how God will forgive all of your sins, and I had to guess which one, I might say Sauvignon Blanc, which actually feels warm and inviting. But this song is so dynamic. It has personality. It even has a little bit of edge. The drums just sound too intense. Like in Dios Es Un Stalker, Rosalía is singing from the perspective of God here, and we already know her feelings about that.
That's an impossible exercise, okay? That's why it's already from a sense of humor point of view.
So my original theory was that maybe the word toito contains a bit of sarcasm. Toito is the Spanish word for todo, meaning everything, but in the diminutive form with Andalusian pronunciation, which is very typical in flamenco, where you drop the D. I asked the native Spanish speakers in the comments to share how they think toito versus todo in the song might be adding some sort of nuance to this forgiveness. And we got a lot of responses and a lot of mixed reviews. The general consensus is that toito means every little thing. But whereas some people said this is definitely sarcasm, others said toito can be a sign of a really close relationship. It can be actually a very genuine, open-hearted forgiveness of every little sin. Some people even said that maybe the nonai nonai response, although it is a very common response in flamenco, in this case could be God taking on a sort of human wishy-washiness and saying, well, I forgive you, but no, I don't. So whether or not you agree that toito could be sarcastic, either way, there are lots of examples in this song where God is acting human. This part of the song is my favorite. It sounds sweet and intimate because it is.
Que tú eres pa' mí, yo sé que tú eres pa' mí, yo sé que tú eres pa' mí, yo sé que vendrás a mí. Dice la calle que tú eres pa' mí, dice quien sabe que tú eres pa' mí, se dice en la plaza que tú eres pa' mí, dile a tu madre que tú eres pa' mí.
Tu eres pa' mí is not only very colloquial, it's usually used in very intimate relationships, usually romantic relationships. So to imagine God speaking to you in such an intimate way and even saying like, go tell your mother you're meant for me is amazing. It's really funny. And then the way she describes these stories of flawed and sinful humans also feels very intimate because of how much detail she goes into. You could just picture someone yelling down at his neighbor from the 5th floor down to the 4th, and the one who left me before he left his bottle tells a whole story in just a few words. The one who killed with stabs and his hand didn't even shake. He plunged the knife so deep that he lost it is both very graphic and detailed and also metaphoric. When you sin in this way, there is sort of a part of you that gets lost. So you really do get the impression that God is a stalker, and God is always watching. And then the part that ties it all together, the ultimate humanization of God, the ultimate use of humor and intimacy comes in the last verse. You can hear the playfulness in her voice and in the music here.
Hacerlo como se debe, tres cosas necesitarás: fuego en las manos, ternura en los ojos y a mí presente en el lugar.
She says if you want to do it properly, you're going to need 3 things. It's not clear what it is, but there is sort of a connotation of physical intimacy. Fire in your hands, tenderness in your eyes, me there present in the place. Technically, that would be a threesome. But if I only watch, it won't count. God is making a joke about partaking in a threesome. And you know, if God is a stalker, then there is always a third party present, witnessing everything that we do, even the most intimate acts. I love that on tour, Rosalía acknowledges this link between Dios Es Un Stalker and La Rumba by playing them back to back. She sings Dios while walking through the crowd, and then La Rumba standing next to the orchestra in the audience. So that feeling that God is among us is very strong, and she brings out some of the playful energy of the song as well with her dancing. I know that Rosalía says that humor is the sort of tool that enables her to talk about God because otherwise it's impossible. But for me, these elements of humor and playfulness and personality just make these conversations feel much more accessible. I just feel like Rosalia's creativity and openness to be able to say like, yeah, what if there is a God that makes jokes about threesomes? And what if forgiveness and redemption are not straightforward journeys? It makes any sort of spiritual philosophical conversation much more engaging and interesting than I think most religious teachers are ever able to make it. Atheists and non-atheists, whoever you are, whatever you are, let me know what your thoughts are on this. Okay, moving to probably one of the most vulnerable, if not heart-wrenching songs on this album.
Me acuerdo de
Memória.
Siempre lo recuerdo un poco diferente.
We're nearing the end of the album. Memória, memory in Spanish, is sung in Spanish and Portuguese. The lyrics were written by Portuguese fado singer Carminho, who sings with Rosalía on this track. Their voices together are unbelievable. Carminho joined Rosalía on tour in Lisbon to sing this song, and truly find yourself someone who looks at you the way that Rosalía looks at Carminho when they are singing live together. You can just feel the admiration and adoration. You can even see Rosalía mouthing, like, she's like, damn, twice while Carminho is singing. I think Memoria really captures the fragility and the sadness that comes with meaningful reflection on our lives. It starts off with no background music. It's just Rosalía asking these questions. Do you still remember me? Do you still know where I came from? Who is this woman standing here? Her voice captures that worry of being forgotten. She says, tell me that some memories still exist, that you still know who I am.
Diz-me no meu olhar triste que alguma memória existe. E ainda sabes quem sou.
There is so much fear in these lines, which I think why the singing sounds so delicate at times. Remind me, please, of something, of anything. She's pleading, and there is something really moving about hearing a singer with an incredible voice sing, remind me if I still know how to sing. Makes you reflect on what are the essential parts of self, of your identity, that the possibility of losing is actually really destabilizing and terrifying. Then Carminho comes in. I just love her voice.
Vem comigo pela cidade, diz-me com sinceridade.
There's a powerful picture being painted. The speaker is walking through a city and saying, tell me honestly if you still remember me, where I grew up, where I loved, who I lived with. There's confusion, there's pain. I mean, to be somewhere where you should know everyone and everything, and yet you remember nothing. That loss, even just the possibility of that happening in the future, is devastating. In the chorus, we finally learn who the speaker is talking to. It's actually not another person, it's her own heart. She says, my sweet heart, do you still remember me? Thank you to the Portuguese speaker in the comments who shared that, yes, this expression can be used as sweetheart as another person. But in this case, it is actually the person singing to her own heart. Carminho has confirmed this. And she sings this line about not forgetting who I was and who I am. The echoes in her voice here. The echoes of the past, a memory that's just out of reach, and you're reaching and you're scared of losing it. Some of you shared in the comments you think this song could be about dementia or Alzheimer's. That terrifying realization that you or a loved one is losing memory, losing experiences, and maybe as a result, it might feel like losing identity. On my first listen, I thought for some reason that this was God speaking and asking to be remembered. I might have been in this sort of Dios Es Un Stalker, La Rumba headspace of God having human qualities. But a couple of you commented, and I agree, that hearing this as a human speaking, it actually makes it hit harder. The paradox of this part is how sweet Rosalia's voice comes in compared to how hard-hitting the message is.
Siempre que me acuerdo de algo, siempre lo recuerdo un poco diferente.
Every time I remember something, I remember it a little bit differently.
Okay, this is kind of a confession to say that there might be memories of my life that I might be more true than others, and maybe sometimes I explain it in a way and sometimes I explain it in another. But every time I explain it, in that moment, if I'm explaining it, that's gonna be my truth. This is my truth, and there's truth in it. And I like how imperfect memory is.
And she's so right. The human mind is so imperfect. It's like cracked porcelain. Whether or not we have dementia, even just observing something in the present moment, our minds can put our own assumptions and projections onto it. We can twist, deny, avoid seeing things, see it through our own lens. And that is when something is literally right in front of us. Imagine how much we can distort a memory from the past. When I die, I only ask you not to forget what I have lived. In Magnolias, she says, promise that you will protect me and my name in my absence. This is such a human need to be remembered, like to have that confirmation of our worth, our relationship, our existence. And sometimes thinking about legacy or who will sort of honor my memory when I'm gone can be a way of preparing for or trying to understand death. Hence, movement 4 of this album. And then this final chorus just soars with so much emotion. This line in particular just goes from powerful to painfully soft, capturing the intensity of the desire to be remembered and then just the absolute vulnerability and fear that come with it. One thing I love about this song is the humility. I think that's part of the reason this song feels so heart-wrenching. This song has zero pride. You know, we see people in the world who are obsessed with their legacy for selfish reasons, not because it benefits humanity or others. But this song just has this tone of authentic, vulnerable self-reflection. As we're approaching the end of the album, we're approaching the final goodbye that is Magnolias. You know, there's nothing like the thought of death to make you ponder life. That brings us into the perfect ending track for this album, Magnolias.
Tírame magnolias, tírame magnolias.
This might be the song that I've seen the widest range of emotional responses to. Some people find it devastating, some people find it comforting, warm, maybe you find it all of the above. My theory about this song is that how we feel when we listen to it says a lot about us and our relationship with death. This song is a mirror in that way. Rosalía is singing as if she is at her own funeral in such a calm and detailed way that forces us to confront this concept of death. It's kind of impossible to avoid thinking about when you listen, I think. Rosalía says she was inspired by the funeral of Indian mystic Anandamayi Ma, which people described as a really peaceful experience, a really peaceful funeral. And she was covered in flowers, hence the Tírame magnolias, throw magnolias on me. It's really fitting that the song was inspired by this saint, not just because of the flowers, but because of something that she said. Embodies the essence of this album. She said, whether you worship Christ, Krishna, Kali, or Allah, you actually worship the one light that is also in you, since it pervades all things. Ego sum nil, ego sum lux mundi. The intro music here is a kind of response to the intro music on the first track, whereas the first song's melody is descending and ascending. This melody is sort of reluctantly ascending. On tour, the stairs are now facing away from us, signaling the final goodbye and her ascension to the light. This line is referencing a saying, if you see a Mercedes hearse drive by, it brings you good luck. And it might seem like a contrast that something that symbolizes death would have a positive impact on life, but really how you feel about death and how you feel about life are linked. We'll talk more about that in a second, but her voice here, so delicate, so painfully sweet. This section and all of these references feel like she's honoring the world so that she can say goodbye to it. And she captures all 5 of the senses here. You can see, hear, smell, touch, taste. Maybe a way to truly honor death, someone's death, is to honor the vividness of life, of their life. Motorbikes always find their way into Rosalia's art. I love that you can hear the bells in the background. It feels like they're calling her up to them. Today we live it up. We're mocking fate, and what I didn't do in life, you will do it when I die. Rosalia has shared that this idea was inspired by a flamenco artist she looks up to.
In my back, I have a tattoo that is something that Manuel Molina wrote, which is my favorite writer in Spain. My favorite writer in Spain, he said, que nadie vaya a llorar el día que yo me muera. Es más hermoso cantar, aunque se cante con pena.
Don't cry at my funeral. It's more beautiful to sing, even if you sing with sorrow. But when she sings this chorus, she is just conveying, it's truly remarkable how much emotion she can convey at once. Somehow there's sorrow and joy. There's like power and also peace. There's an embrace. There's release. It feels humbling, it feels empowering all at once. This is why I say maybe this song is a mirror, because depending on what feelings get triggered in us, we might feel maybe more of the joy when we listen or more of the sorrow. And then one of the most powerful lines that ties everything together. God descends, I ascend, and we'll meet in the middle. This is what Rosalia has done on this album. She's brought the heavens down to us. She's made spirituality more real, more accessible, while also taking us up to the heavens. One of the most universal human needs is to be seen and to be understood. So this idea of meeting in the middle with God or the light, I think helps us feel seen through this album. During this line on tour, you can see the divine light coming to her, and likewise her arms and hands being open to receive it. This concept of having received a stab or two from life and being grateful, that life has disarmed me, that life has humbled me. Ego sum nil. Many writers have said some variation of this. The more unlived your life, the greater your death anxiety. The more you fail to experience your life fully, the more you will fear death. And whether or not you agree, I think regardless where you lie on these spectrums of having lived your life fully or not, of having anxiety, fear around death or not, feeling gratitude as Rosalía describes here or not, I think engaging with this song will tap into your feelings around death. Musically, it just feels like this really warm and open invitation for us to reflect on those questions. This last part, really powerful. Promise me you'll remember my name and my memory like in Memória. This is the ultimate ego sum nil, ego sum lux mundi line. I who come from the stars turn into dust today in order to return to the stars.
A volver con ella.
She fades into the stars, she fades into the light. On tour, she turns around and just walks into the light. Ego sum lux mundi, I am the light of the world, I am the stars, I come from the stars. At the same time, I am dust, I am nothing, ego sum nil. It is the fact that I'm nothing that makes me the stars, that makes me everything. And this song just has a way of feeling so deeply personal and deeply universal at the same time. It's divine. It is human. The saints that we get to know are so remarkably humble and human and flawed and also divine and powerful and transcendental. Is transcendental a word? Transcendent? I am just in absolute awe of this album. If you are still watching, there is something that Rosalía said that really inspired me that may resonate with you as well.
Yeah.
Do you think that you're asking a lot of your audience
I
to
think
be
I
able
am.
to absorb this?
Absolutely, I am. But I think that the more we are in the era of dopamine, the more I want the opposite. At least that's what I want, you know? That's what I'm craving.
And that's how I have been feeling lately too with music. I really want to savor it, digest it, think about it, feel it, converse about it. So in a world where there's so much short and dopamine content, if you are still here and you are still watching, listening, thank you. I don't take your time for granted. I really appreciate it. So I hope that you enjoyed this. If you did, hitting like, subscribe, those things do help. If you want to comment all of your thoughts on this album, how do you feel listening to it? Truly, thank you for being here, and I hope to see you in the next video.
That's gonna be the energy. And then